Vin.
I'm Sori.
And that's, what did I call it?
Shiny.
Shiny. And, Ghosty. This is In Mourning, Black Storm.
Epic Underground.
Epic Underground. Okay. Now, what are alliances, dear listener? An alliance is a group of people who get together. They're basically genre specific, although it's not necessarily limited to that.
Right.
But it's groups within our Patreon sub-community. You get in for $1 at the gate, obviously 5, 10, etc., gets you more points, etc., gives you more leverage. But you pull your points together, and then they influence what songs we do, which is why we're doing Black Storm right now. And so, this crew is called the Epic Underground. There's a black metal crew headed up by the big homie Damon Sage, which is called the True Cult. Then you've got, who are the other ones? You've got the Epic Underground, you've got the Extreme Underground, you've got A99, there's a whole bunch of them.
The Core.
The Core! When the website goes up, you also get backstage passes that gives you access to restricted sites. I mean, the restricted areas of our website that's coming up pretty soon.
Yep, she's got more information for you to check out.
Oh, very good. Shout out to Amy Lee. And so they have selected In Mourning. For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori. Let me pull up the lyrics here. In Mourning, Black Storm, and we will be going pretty soon. Now, let them know if they want to do the Filthy Capitalist option story.
If you know exactly what song you want and you want to get it bumped right into our short list, the best way to do that is to jump on the $125 tier on Patreon or to go through PayPal. PayPal will be a little faster for you. And once you do it 3 or more times with us, then you automatically get bumped down to the $75 price per song. So, if you know what you want and you got a little extra capital, that's the way to do it. He calls it the Filthy Capitalist way. I just think you know what you want to get it done, so.
All right.
Ready?
So I'm very interested to hear this song and this band. Let's do it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, it's coming. Just be patient. Look.
Oh, okay.
Full screen. Okay, so the name of this band is In Mourning. That's the name of the band.
Yeah.
And the name of the song is Black Storm. Okay.
Yep.
And the title of the record is Garden of Storms. That's a brilliant. I love this guy's. I love the lyricist. Whoever's doing the lyrics here. We just watched this show on this movie on Netflix called The Kindergarten Teacher.
Oh yeah.
And it was about this basically this young phenom. The kid was like 5 years old and he was writing like this amazing poetry and it then went all crazy. I highly recommend you watch it. But ever since then, I've really begun to appreciate poetry. I used to love poetry back in the day. But I really began to appreciate poetry a lot more after watching that movie. So,
Oh really?
oh yeah. It was very inspirational. Went back to writing, all that jazz, fun stuff. And then Garden of Storms is a very poetic way to talk about an album. I feel like there's a lot of.
I wonder if this is his daughter.
I doubt it.
Because he was kind of like reddish and beard and stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's his sister.
What?
They look a lot closer in age than.
No, he looks like he's mid-30s and she looks like she's 17.
I think she's 23.
23? Selah could do something like this.
Yeah,
The
you and
hair
Selah,
along.
you and
Yeah.
Selah could do something like that because you guys
It's all fair.
look exactly like each other. So I love the lyricist here. This band
Yeah, let me pull up the lyrics.
was hard for me to figure out, and I appreciate that because it started off black metal-y, death metal-y, but they don't have a death metal aesthetic at all.
No, that's what I thought. I was like,
They're rocking hats and all that stuff.
chandeliers,
And
he's got a hat, he's got a gauge out here.
Yeah, and like,
They looked like they would have been more punk, or at least that one guy.
well, yeah. That's the whole. It's postmodernism, man. It's all about interpretation.
do what you want.
So I thought that was cool, and I also appreciate the fact that I couldn't really put them in a box. Genius has them listed here as
Progressive metal, melodic death metal,
which is probably all true. I probably agree with that. Sometimes I disagree with how they classify bands. So I feel like for example, Hierophant, Song 3, Magenta Ritual, Song 4, Tribunal, good lord. These lyrics are, even the song title is crazy. Tribunal of Suns. That's brilliant. So yeah, I think these guys this is probably a concept record to some degree. And I think you'd have to have a lot of back work to figure out exactly what they're doing. So,
this is the first song.
Yeah, these guys are brilliant. These guys are brilliant. I really like these guys. This is another band I'd like to interview. So whoever has contacts with this band, let me know. How many views are on that video? Just go there. What is it?
Go right here.
Well, Garden of Storms. Where is it? I'm trying to see what is the likelihood of being able to interview these fellas. Yeah.
They're 200,000.
Yeah, so that's gonna be tough to pull off, but we're gonna attempt to anyway because these guys, I really like them, and I'd like to do an interview to kind of see conceptually what was going on with the record, what they were trying to accomplish. Go ahead. So what's your take on the song? How did you feel? What was going on with you?
Some of it I was got pulled right into, and then there was other stuff where I was looking kind of confused, more because aesthetically what they looked like and then what they actually sounded like was completely different. The chandelier above them was funny to me. I'm like, are they at somebody's mom's house? You know what I mean? Mom, can we use the foyer?
Yeah. I was thinking the exact same thing. Go ahead.
But it looked cool. I actually kind of liked that. And both of those guys can really do that with their voice. I really appreciate it ever since I tried to do it by myself multiple times. It doesn't work. It looks so easy when they're doing it, but it's really not. So yeah, I thought that they vocally did really good. There was no female vocals in it though. I always like female vocals mixed in with
Really?
black and darkness, and yes.
So, yeah. If it's done right.
Yeah,
Sometimes
it's done right.
sometimes it's done right. Sometimes it's not. Like
Yeah.
the Therion song we did yesterday was an example. Or
Yeah, but that was
we're
mostly.
probably it was mostly featuring her,
Yeah.
and the guys were the background. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I like it when it's like the it's the wrong word, but like the grungy sound of the like death vocals of the male, and then the female comes in with her like I think it's very, very beautiful. So what did you get lyrically out of it?
Okay, so I'm on some website called Metal Temple, and so Tobias Netzel is the lead singer. The storyline of these 3 albums is so deep and complicated that I sometimes do not understand what it's all about, even when I sing the actual thing. So apparently,
That's the artists themselves?
apparently this record is is a trilogy,
Wow.
and it's the closing of a trilogy that started back in 2012.
Oh wow.
So I was right. It is sort of like a concept record.
That's even. Have you seen that before, where there's 3 albums that make up a?
Yeah, there is what's the name of the band? Is it Hang On to the Glory of My Right Hand? What's that? That's the
That's the one you listen to a lot. I know that.
yeah, I've been listening to that song for almost a decade. Coheed and Cambria I have like a storyline and they wrote a comic book and all that, and like it was very, very, very involved. Very involved. So how can you describe the songwriting of Garden of Storms, especially with the welcoming of 2 new members? I make the foundation for all songs except for Huntress Moon. That's a song Tim wrote the basics for. So anyway, it's a storyline, and I'm not gonna go and like do because I want to just interpret it for myself. But I was under the suspicion that this was a storyline or a concept album.
You were correct.
So there's a lot of things you're gonna miss unless you're a diehard In Mourning fan, which I am probably soon to become. I hope other people like request an In Mourning record. I'll say this: if you can get me an interview with Tobias, we'll do another one. We'll do your favorite In Mourning song because I want to sit down and talk to anybody that can write like that. Is like, I gotta talk to him.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was the opening salvo to the song Garden of Storms. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look for the one before. See what I'm saying?
Oh, the album before?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, we already said this is the first song on the album.
Right. So Afterglow was the album they did before.
Look at those album covers.
These guys, man, they're not playing around. Okay, so Afterglow was the last song on the previous.
Call to Orion.
The previous. She's missing Orion right
The
now.
baby so much right now.
Behold the tormentor's creation, sculptures of ember in the Afterglow gallery. In the midst of perdition lies the voyager's path. Okay, so that's the last line of the previous record, and then we get to this one, and it basically is supposed to continue on. So there you go.
The incarnation of Hades. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. Anyway, enough of the backstory stuff. I don't want to bore you guys with the details, but it's very, very fascinating stuff. A violent suspense above, so stained the blackened, swallowed by the shifting sands, the burning ships adrift.
The burning of shapes adrift.
In search for the crossing of lights, borne by the gust of her wings.
From her wings.
You! Good Lord! Rest in the eye of the storm, devoured and lost, descending like blood from the sky. So it looks like there's some sort of story about this girl whose destiny it is to either destroy or save the world, basically, I think. Might be it.
Untouched by the flame, stung by the crooked blade.
And there's forces that are like arrayed against her, but so flames don't bother her, but I guess steel is one of her weaknesses, basically.
But then it says born by the gust from her wings, feeding on blood from a wounded sky. What was born from the gust from her wings?
I don't know, maybe she had a child. Maybe she had a child that was a vampire. You know what I mean?
Could be.
I was thinking about Slayer this whole time when he was
Black Storm.
doing that time. Ready blood from incarcerated sky.
So Black Storm is what's born by the gust from her wings. But we just don't know what Black Storm is.
Maybe Black Storm is the name of her child. Because it says, didn't it say something about forgotten sons forever sings? There you go.
Yeah, right there at the end.
Evoken by the singing wind, forgotten sons forever sing. Ascend the mournful kings, feeding on blood from a wounded... I'm reading all this backwards.
I know.
Born by the gust from her wings, feeding on blood from a wounded sky. Ascend the mournful kings, evoken by the singing wind, forgotten sons forever sing. Good Lord. Just really, really, really good poetry. I'm probably
Forgotten sons forever sing. Maybe her children were killed. Maybe her sons were killed.
It's possible. It's possible. Because the next line, well, I think, you know, based on what the author is saying, like, it's such a complex storyline that it could be that, it could be something else. The next song starts with, I denied your swinging flail, cutting through my shields, and you feel just right here, but you feel so dark. The night it's all gone. You made me weak. You made me feel like I belong. And then it talks about burning rain, falling blade penetrates the ground, yada, yada, yada. So she ends up, it looks like, in some sort of relationship with somebody, and this song was there to basically introduce her into the storyline. But again,
I like her character so far.
But again, yeah, and hopefully the video doesn't get blocked so you can see the video too, because the video, it features this girl walking through these woods, and then the people are doing all this flag stuff, which is pretty cool. I actually, what was it? Didn't we just do a Behemoth video where there were people in the woods doing all the flag stuff? That's so funny.
Yeah, yes. Well, were they doing flag stuff? I remember the flames, and I remember that guy that was like, you know, writhing on the floor there, the ground.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff here, in my opinion, that is there to unpack. You know, hopefully maybe these guys will publish a book or something like that so that you can, you know, have it.
Yeah, because look, the burning of shapes adrift in search for the crossing of lights. You know, like when you think, remember there's like that kind of story, you go and they go on that boat and then they cross over to the other side.
That I was reading?
No, it's just like an idea. Like you actually kind of see it on.
Oh, the river Styx?
I don't know.
Where you go to the underworld, you take the boat to the underworld?
Yeah, so there's that, but then it says in search for the crossing of lights. So, you know, crossing of lights, I don't know, maybe I'm putting too many concepts together. But we see light, you know, people always say they see lights the other side.
Yeah.
When they get to the other side.
Well, he says, what can you say your main focus is when you write songs, unless there are different centers of attention for each you made? My focus would be to really try to create something that has never been done before, and that is quite hard nowadays when there are millions of great metal bands. Sometimes I manage, sometimes I don't. So it's a very complex story, and that's why I'm saying that what you're saying could be right, because by their own admission, you know, this is interesting. Which bands have you been listening to lately? Any particular newcomers you find inspiring? Right now, I would say that the new Tool album is the main focus point.
Interesting.
I think I've listened to it at least 50 times. So,
look at this too. Okay, so remember it says born by the gust from her wings, and then, you know, I was theorizing that it was that is the Black Storm. Then it says rest in the eye of the storm. So it does look like the storm comes from the gust in her wings. And then they're saying rest in the eye of the storm, devoured and lost.
Yeah, it's either she descending like blood from the sky. It says blood a couple times though, right?
Yeah, it does. But it's always talking about the wounded sky, the blood from the wounded sky.
Descending like blood from the sky, but in the bridge it says feeding on blood from a wounded sky. So she's an aerial creature and whatever, and then her kid or whatever feeds on the blood, the energy, the life force, whatever. I have no idea. But it
looks like the band has no idea either.
Well, I wouldn't say the band has no idea, but it's very intricate. I mean, look, they've been writing this story for, 3 records? So these guys have been doing this since, 2012? If you look at it? Let me see the discography. Yeah. Weight of Oceans is the first one. Afterglow, and then Garden of Storms. So that's that's 3 albums worth since 2012. It's almost a decade they've been writing this.
That's crazy.
Which is a very, kind of interesting thought process to write a story that spans, almost 10 years.
A single project so long.
Yeah, like, to me, it's like, whoa, like, how do you...
Not get bored of a topic or want to try something new.
Well, how do you maintain the continuity without forgetting certain details? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
if I wrote something and then it was like 10 years ago, but I'm still trying to do the continuation of the story, I feel like some things would get lost in translation.
It's obviously very important to them, the topic.
So this is the last song in the first part of the story. Misguided, unredeemer, mortal seeker of truth, cold and endless ocean, undefeated is this giant, star guider, a pathfinder cast into oblivion. So I think that one is talking about, and maybe there are different themes too, because here it says Afterglow kind of looks like, like a storm, like a red storm type of thing. It says fire and ocean. You see it right there.
Oh yeah.
So there's some natural aspects to it too, but aesthetically with the video where the girl's running and those things with the flags, and they're usually like they're made to look ominous and almost demonic or whatever. But I think there's something beautiful about that type of ritual in the middle of the woods. It's one of the things that I really feel like paganism has right. Obviously not worshiping nature or whatever. Maybe some pagans will say technically we're not. But yeah, but recognizing that you are in nature, and even from a biblical perspective, sure, you're at the top of the totem pole, but you're still, your feet still have to touch the earth, and you're still
from whence you came.
Yeah, right. And so I really, really like that about paganism. And like we were out in the woods, and we were, doing our little Bible study in the woods or whatever.
So wonderful.
So it's kind of bugs me that Christianity, we don't really have a lot of like rituals or
too fearful
around nature. Yeah, no, I think a lot of Christians are fearful about that type of connection with the. I was actually listening to somebody. This was like years and years ago, and he was talking about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. These ants, these trees, they were sentient and all that. And then the guy goes, "Well, how do we know that they're not sentient?" He's talking about nature and things of that nature. And this guy was like a avant-garde type of thinker, and nothing. You know what I mean?
Nothing's outside of the realm of possibilities.
Right. And so I think the pagans were onto something that we've forgotten. And I think that eventually, by the time this is all over, we're going to figure out, how to properly relate to nature. Because obviously I don't believe you should worship nature, but I also don't believe that we should, you're out there in a building, and it's this sterile building, worshiping God in some weird sterile building. Which makes sense if you're like in the middle of a monsoon or maybe a horrible, snowstorm up in the Northeast or whatever. But when there's weather like this, like, it amazes me that there isn't some sort of midnight Christian ritual where you go out into the woods with a bunch of candles. Well, I mean, a bunch of candles, that might, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I think that would be a crazy experience to do that. Like a lot of
that would be really cool.
A lot of the imagery in the temple of the Israelites was a lot of garden and nature imagery. They combined trees and rivers and things like that with angels and things like that. They just combined all these elements into the temple ritual. And the temple was a shadow of something better than the temple. Which was, the Garden of Eden. And in the Garden of Eden, when you would worship God, you were worshiping God right smack dab in the middle of nature. And the garden itself was the temple, and the temple was a faint reminder of the Garden of Eden. So being able to worship in the temple of nature is the ultimate goal. Not some sterile building where,
I think the other thing too is that nature, obviously, it surrounds us no matter, where you go to. There's different forms of nature, but it's all over the place. And I think that, like if you have, like scent, for instance, is something that can bring us back, 20 years.
Right.
And so when you have certain events and certain things that like are surrounded, like surround that smell or that like place, then when you come around that again, it's like, oh yeah. So like I think that if we did more stuff like that, like in the woods or in nature, then when you smell nature or you see like the changing of the seasons or different stuff, you'd be like, oh yeah, my God. And it would like kind of remind you to worship and stuff. Where like you go into a building and you're not like, buildings are not like, it's just not the same. Like you go into a building, you go into another building, it doesn't make you think necessarily of worship or of God. But nature automatically does, because it's...
You know the weird thing about buildings generally...
For me anyway, I'm not saying everybody thinks of God when they go in nature, but...
Buildings generally only carry that memory signature if something bad happened there. If something bad happened in a building, people have that memory signature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's very strange. Well, that's because it's man-made, and you know, nature is the temple. So shout out to the pagans. They figured something out. And then what did we do? We ran into pagans and we set them all on fire. Astaghfirullah. But I really like the song, and I like the imagery, I like the artistry, I like the poetry. Don't necessarily know what's going on in the song per se, but maybe
that's why we need that interview.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe when we hook up with the big homie Tobias, he'll be able to explain it more clearly. This is 9.2 for me.
That's exactly what I had in my head.
9.2?
Yeah.
9.2. Very, very good selection. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.